In today's episode, we're looking at indirect cooking, how you would set up your barbecue for it, and why it was such a big game changer in my cooking. Hi everyone, James Mackay here from Barbechoo.com, and welcome back to another episode of BBQ Know How. And today we're looking at indirect cooking, and we're going to talk about what it is, how to set up your barbecue for it, and some of the advantages of being able to cook that way on your barbecue. So before we start, I have a quick announcement to make. The Thermapen giveaway has now finished, and the winner is this person here. The Thermapen Mark IV and set of tongs is now winging its way to you as we speak. So congratulations, thanks to everyone who entered. It was good to see such a reaction to it. Hopefully I'll have a chance to give a lot more stuff away on the channel as we go forward. In the last episode we talked about direct cooking, which was placing your food directly over the heat source. So indirect cooking is the opposite to that. You place it opposite the heat source, put the lid onto your barbecue, and your food will cook then in the ambient heat inside the barbecue. That means you cannot do indirect cooking without a lid. So your barbecue has to have a lid on it in order to build up the heat and cook your food. There are a few different ways to set up your barbecue for indirect cooking. So we're going to go over the main ways to set up a charcoal barbecue, and I'll give a brief overview of what you would do on a gas barbecue to achieve the same results. So you would typically use indirect cooking for larger cuts of meat that are going to take a bit longer to cook, and if you place those over a direct heat they would burn on the outside before they ever were cooked properly in the centre. So on a charcoal barbecue you would typically use briquettes to do indirect cooking, as they'll burn for a longer period of time at a more steady temperature. On things like the ceramic barbecues that are a bit better sealed you can use lump wood, but unfortunately with the kettles airflow is a little bit more free, so the lump wood tends to burn out too quickly. So I'll pull the barbecue into place and we'll get the camera placed overhead, and I'll show you some of the main setups for indirect cooking, where you would place the lit briquettes, where you would place your food then in relation to them. So the first setup we're going to talk about is probably one of the most common, and that is the 50-50 split. So you have your lit coals on one side of the grill, the other side you leave empty, you would have a drip pan, and then your food would be placed on the cooking grate on this side of the barbecue. This gives you a good area if you want to do split cooking. So if you want to sear something first, you have a good area of direct heat over the briquettes, and then move it to the indirect side to finish off. So this is quite a good setup, and that's probably why it's one of the most common. So the second setup then is the 50-50 split. So you use roughly the same amount of fuel. However, your drip trays in the centre, your coals are down each side of the barbecue, and your food would go in the centre of the barbecue. This has the advantage of having an even heat on both sides of the food. With the previous 50-50 split, you would usually have to rotate your food halfway through, whereas with this setup you have an equal heat on either side. You still have a good area at each side if you want to do any kind of searing before you move it into the direct heat. So again, this is probably equally as popular as the 50-50 method, whereas this is split to both sides. The next two methods maybe aren't quite as common. This is the first of them, so this is the ring of fire, which you would have your lit briquettes the whole way around the outside of the barbecue, leaving the entire centre of the barbecue as your indirect zone. So you have a slightly larger indirect zone this way, and you have an even heat the whole way out round. However, with the fuel spread out so thin, sometimes it can be hard to retain that heat. Again, drip tray in the centre, you don't have a huge area for searing food because you've only got that small band of briquettes around the outside. So again, not quite as common a setup, but it's definitely an option to get a nice even heat the whole way around your food. Okay, and the fourth and final method then would be the bullseye method. Commonly this would be used maybe with something like the vortex in the centre, with your charcoal inside it, and then you use the outside as your indirect zone. So you have a nice concentrated area of heat over the centre of the cooking grate for searing, and then that food can be moved off to any side and put the lid on then to continue cooking. Again, probably not as commonly used with briquettes. The vortex would be one of the only sort of methods of using this setup. You do have a nice area of even heat around the outside, but again, the 50-50 method or the 50-50 split is what you would most commonly use for roasting. This is better for sort of smaller foods that you want to cook quickly over the coals and then move them off to the side. Before we go any further, I want to do a little bit of a story time. So I started a new job back in 2014 and it was in a garden centre with a barbecue department. A couple of months later they had a demonstration. I think it was Dan Cooper from Weber, and I had never really been into barbecuing before, and this was about the height of my efforts on my big old gas barbecue. So I went to this demo, was actually working, stood at the back and watched the demo with Dan Cooper, and I was amazed that he was cooking a whole chicken on the barbecue. I think it was a beer can chicken at that point. Came home, I think it was 2 days later, tried it on my big gas barbecue, realised that my big gas barbecue was crap and had to get a new one. But that was the point for me, that I realised that indirect cooking meant I could cook anything on the barbecue. It wasn't just smaller cuts of meat, steaks, sausages, burgers. I could do anything on it. So that was sort of a big game changer, and I think for most people it's a game changer once they realise that you can actually cook those larger joints as well. So anything you can cook in your kitchen, you can cook it outside on the barbecue. So thanks Dan for starting off my addiction, and I have 8 or 9 barbecues and weekly meetings to talk about my addiction. Thank you. So for indirect cooking on a gas barbecue, this is a 3-burner spirit. So you would generally have your center burner off and your outer burners on. So you have a direct heat over the first and third burner, but there's nothing over the middle burner. So your food would be placed in that center zone, and that would be your area of indirect heat. With the lid down, the heat will build up inside the hood and cook your food. If you have a 2-burner barbecue, you're a little bit more limited then. So you would have one burner on and the second burner off. You would place your food over the unlit burner, and then you would need to rotate it halfway through cooking to make sure it cooks evenly on both sides. So that's the benefit of a 3-burner barbecue. You can have even heat on both sides of the food with your indirect zone in the centre. There's no single best way to set up your barbecue for indirect cooking. All of those setups have their own advantages and disadvantages, and it really just depends what type of food you're cooking. You can choose the best setup then to match the way that food will be cooked. One tip I would have is to always use a drip pan. Whenever you're cooking direct, the fat from your food will drip down onto the coals and it's instantly burnt off and turns to smoke. In indirect cooking, because you're not cooking over the coals, that fat will all drip onto the bottom of your barbecue and it can really make a mess. So place a drip pan or a foil tray. You don't have to use disposable trays, you can use a normal baking tray from the kitchen. But use something in below to catch those drips and it'll make your cleaning out your barbecue a lot easier. Another point I should make is to not always trust the hood thermometer on your barbecue. Sometimes the way the vents are set up, the thermometer can end up being directly above the coals, so your food is sitting off to the side. It's not actually where that thermometer is, so there can be a difference at grill level temperature and the hood temperature. But as long as you're aware of what that is, you can use a wired probe to monitor the grill level temperature. You'll soon learn then what the difference is between your hood temperature and your grill level temperature, and you can account for that to give you a rough idea of what area you're sitting in. So that is indirect cooking. It's the thing that set me on my way on my barbecue journey. I have been addicted ever since I found out you could cook larger cuts of meat on the barbecue, and since then I've tried a range of different things. I'm sure it's happened to some of you as well, so jump into the comments section and let me know the first things you cooked indirect on your barbecue. You can join me in the next episode where we're moving on in this short little mini series of how to set up your barbecue. We're going to look at low and slow, so we'll be concentrating on the kettle, and we'll also do a little bit on the gas barbecue and show you how to do low and slow on your gas barbecue as well. If you enjoyed this video, please hit the like button and subscribe to the channel so you'll be notified of future videos that come out, and I'll see you in the next episode.